We have heard both the studio and David Zaslav say we're thrilled with this movie. That's fine. But we have also heard from some internal channels that the movie's actually looking phenomenal. And James Gunn said this: I will say here that Flash is probably one of the greatest superhero movies ever made. But I think it's really interesting that James Gunn is saying here that this Flash movie resets everything.
Back in March, sources exclusively told The Hollywood Reporter that Cruise saw the movie and loved it so much that he cold called Muschietti to rave about it. According to insiders, the Mission Impossible actor said something to the effect that The Flash is everything you want in a movie, and this is the kind of movie we need now.
Awesome intro.
Yeah, that
Willis
second
Streety
intro
flavor in there. Like,
yeah,
opening number 6.
he gave that to me our last live 2 months ago, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to throw it in there just to see what he says.
I could smell the style. I was like, that's not Rudy.
Well,
That's
welcome.
just nonsense. I know where that comes from.
Exactly. Like 3-minute intros? That's not my style.
We've been live for 7 minutes. Haven't even seen Rudy yet.
Well, welcome, friends, and welcome everybody to the live. I have my good friends here, Mr. Cody Leach, Charles, and my brother from another mother here, Mr. Lomax, down below. And as you saw in the intro, we're going to talk about The Flash. I've pretty much gone on record many times with passion that I love the DC universe and what it could have been. I love Zack Snyder's vision, and I love the treatment that we got. I feel of all the movies that have been tampered with, I feel the Justice League, Zack Snyder's Justice League, was the true version of what we were supposed to see. There was no studio interference, and seeing the Flash in that movie, you know, we all know about the scene where he runs back in time, saves everybody. It brought a tear to my eye. It's a scene I never expected. It was powerful, emotional. So I guess I was expecting a little bit of that with the Flash. And then James Gunn, greatest movie of all time, one of the best. And then Tom Cruise, of all people, who I love and respect. And it's like, okay, maybe I let my expectations get a little high, but I think we can all collectively say that we all walked out feeling the same way, that it was okay. So we're going to talk about what the hell happened with the Flash. All right. So, okay, very good.
You can say that, Rudy. You can say that if you wish, but.
Okay, well, real quick, before we get to the thoughts on The Flash, I want to kind of give everybody a synopsis based on what is public right now. The movie had a budget of $200 million, right? And CP, if you have any other data, I know you're the whiz when it comes to that. Let me know if that's wrong. The filming
I heard 300 million, so somewhere between 2 and 3.
Okay, that long, right? The filming,
I think 3 is break even.
Yeah, with advertising and all that other stuff. Yeah,
well, reshoots and everything too, because they did a lot of tinkering.
Yeah,
during that year where they're like, how
million.
the fuck do we advertise this with that guy on the goddamn poster?
You have to keep in mind that they're not doing the late show rounds plugging the movie too, because
they're not. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so they're saving money, not shipping off. I mean, who would you send to plug the movie? You're not going to send Ezra anyway.
Keaton.
Congratulations on the Flash, Ezra. So, how was Hawaii?
Oh, you got your little beeper on your ankle. That's interesting.
All right, so 300. Let's just go 300 million is the estimated budget, right? The filming began, according to Google, on April of 2021 and ended October of 2021. This began, as far as in production, back in 2013. And the Flash movie was announced in 2013 to be released in 2018. Here we are a decade later. Here it is. So again, I've seen your review, Cody. I haven't seen your CP, but I want to start with my brother from another mother, Mr. Lomax. What did you think of The Flash? Just a quick synopsis of what you thought.
Loved it.
You loved it?
I did. I loved it. We chatted a little bit before we came on, so you kind of know what I think already, but I'll repeat that a little bit, which is just that I only went into this film for one thing, and that was Keaton. Okay. Mm-hmm. If I got anything else, then that was icing on the cake. I can't stress how formative those first 2 Batman movies were on me, the Burton Keaton Batman movies, and the very idea that we would get Keaton back as Batman 30 years after the fact was just like, to me, that was just, forget Tobey Maguire and Andy.
Here's my money,
Garfield coming back. Yeah, Keaton back as Batman. So I just wanted Keaton to be in this for more than just a cameo. I didn't want it to just be this glorified cameo, and it wasn't. It was great. So anything else for me was icing on the cake. And so the fact that for me we got quite an emotional story for Barry, like particularly when the final moment when he meets his mum, it literally choked me up.
Same.
And on top of that, push aside all the the fact that Ezra Miller's a dick in real life, and he was phenomenal. Like if you didn't know all the guff that he's been up to, you just come to this purely on the basis of his performance. Justice League made me not like the Flash all that much. I didn't warm to him at all in Justice League, but thankfully I did like Batman, I did like Wonder Woman, I did like Superman, so I didn't really care that much. But the Flash was not, I was not endeared to Ezra Miller as the Flash from Justice League.
Now, Josh Whedon's or Zack Snyder's or both?
Joss Whedon's.
Okay.
The Snyder cut did a lot to kind of to make me go, oh, okay, now I see where they were going with it. So we'll see. But it still wasn't a draw for me. And as I say, given his off-screen shenanigans, even more so. So the fact that one, his character arc was really great and actually got me choked up, and two, Ezra Miller was fantastic in the role. It doesn't stop him being a dick in real life, but he was still fantastic in that role. So that was just pure icing on the cake. And then I was a bit on the fence about Supergirl, what's she going to be like? We know that this universe is kind of ending, so is it even worth introducing her? But I really liked her as well. So I just thought bringing these three characters together, all their stuff together, was fantastic. And again, more icing on the cake, getting Ben Affleck back as Batman as well. So for me, I loved it. Was there problems in it? Was there issues? Yeah, but for me, it was things like seeing Nicolas Cage as Superman, but it's not even Nicolas Cage. It's like some weird ass kind of deep fake thing. I was like, they could have done a better job with that. But it's that Nicolas Cage bit is like, you're talking like 10 seconds of screen time in a 2.5 hour film. And yes, it really stands out because it's this awful CGI, but it's neither here nor there within the grand scheme of the story.
Right. And he's not like an expensive get right now. So you would think with all the money they're dumping into it, throw the guy $1 million. Listen, there's 2 hours worth of work. We're going to give you a wig.
But it's primarily there to get the in joke of having finally a giant spider going up. The famous Kevin Smith story with the giant spider. And for me,
a better documentary about it. What's his name? I forgot. He passed away. John
Schnepp. Yeah. The Death of Superman Lives, What Happened. Ridiculous title, but there you go. But I
Durbin's
saw
in the chat. Hey, Durbin. I'm sorry.
Hey. I saw that giant spider and I just pissed myself laughing. I was just like, I just, like no one else, like, if you're not a DC fanboy, you're not going to get that. It's just, but I think a lot of the criticisms I hear are that there's a lot of it's just pure fan service. And I'm on both sides of the fence with that in the sense that I can totally understand where non-DC fanboys might look at that and think, it's just fan service. And like if you take that scene out, it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't affect the narrative,
right?
So to speak.
So there's no problem with it.
Exactly. Whereas for me, because I am a DC fanboy, I'm like,
it's just icing on the cake. Sure,
I love it. It's icing on the cake, and
some of it is a little inside baseball. Like six-pack is not going to understand Nicolas Cage with long hair as Superman. Like, what the? No.
But the comic book fans know, because they all know the Kevin Smith story and how John Peters wanted the big spider in the third act. So it was, I got it. I was like, is that Nick Cage? I started cracking up when I saw that, because
at this point,
I never thought I would have seen that ever on the big screen.
At this point, I actually appreciate and prefer the more niche references, because something that I'm sure we'll get into, like nostalgia and remember berries and stuff, that's become such a crutch of comic book films over the last 4 or 5 years, and it's all so broad. It's like any person, 9 out of 10 persons that are watching this are going to get it immediately. I like some of those deeper cuts where I saw it. I asked my son on the drive home, I was like, did you understand that Nicolas Cage thing? And he said yes, but I don't believe him.
Yes. So, am I in trouble? Brian, older Batman was, I know they made was it Victor Miller made a comic, Dark Knight Returns or something like that?
Frank Miller.
Frank Miller, excuse me. And don't expect me to get names. Did they touch on any of that in this with
maybe with Ben Affleck's suit color? Maybe that's the only thing I can think of.
His suit's always kind of been that color, but Zack Snyder's color palette's always darkened it.
I felt like Affleck's suit color in this was going more for an early 90s kind of thing, like Norm Brayfogle era, because there was hints of blue in it. You know, like the black bits weren't necessarily black; they were like bluish, and that's like that's late 80s, early 90s kind of Batman. So, which again I appreciated, but to the casual viewer, they'd just be like, "What? Why is Ben Affleck's suit blue?"
Well, I mean, they had that. I mean, for that same moment that they had Nicolas Cage, they gave you a little Adam West, so it was it was sweet. It was nice to give you the history of Batman in a movie called The Flash.
So Brian loved it. CP, what did you think about it?
The clip you played prior to this is something that I hate about the industry. Reading off all of these, so and so in the industry says that it's the best thing he's ever seen. How many times have we seen movies where I've seen an early copy and it's incredible, and people run on somebody who might have a financial interest in whether or not it does well. Like
wasn't it Batman v Superman where it was all these reports that was like it got a 13-minute standing ovation by the WB execs or something, and it's like, well, I would fucking hope they liked it. Shit.
We paid for this.
Be good. Please let everybody love this. I got $80 million in this.
And I can't help but think of Genesis with James Cameron. And it's like, what? How much did they pay you to say these things?
A lot, probably. Yeah.
And so when people say stuff like that up front, I try to block it out. However, I had fun with it. It was interesting, flawed. There's moments in it. Well, it had to win me back because the baby in a microwave thing. I was like, "Are you kidding?"
You didn't like that? Come on, it was funny.
I loved that.
It was so soon, and I was like, "Oh no!" But it did. It had heart. It brought me back. I started off low with the baby in the microwave, but it was interesting. Another inside baseball thing, the Back to the Future reference with Eric Stoltz. It was like, come on, guys. This isn't even Universal. It's Warner. What are we doing?
So you had fun with it. Okay.
Yeah, Cody, I gave it 3 stars. 3 out of 5.
Okay. 3 out of 5. Okay. And Cody, what did you think?
I liked it quite a bit. Yeah, I didn't love it, but I walked in. First of all, the cards were stacked against this for me to be more critical than I normally am because I had to drive 4 hours to see it. And then almost 4 hours home. And so I was kind of gambling on that one. I was like, okay, like it's going to be good, but I'm putting a lot of investment in this. So yeah, I took my son to go see a press screening of it, and we really enjoyed it. I'm a sucker for time travel, first of all. That's a very easy get for me to get me interested. Ever since I saw Back to the Future as a kid, that's always been one of those story elements that just sucks me in. I've been waiting to see the Flash on the big screen because I really enjoy the character, and it's for as popular as it is, it's weird that we haven't ever gotten a Flash movie. We've gotten TV a couple of different times, and I'm somebody that actually doesn't have that much built-in nostalgia for Keaton, because while I should be with my age, I've never really been the biggest fan of those movies. I like them, but I'm not. It wasn't like these groundbreaking experiences like it is with so many other people. Like when Brian talks about it, when Sean talks about it, and so that wouldn't be a huge draw for me for just to come see Michael Keaton. So I just kind of walked in wanting to have a good time. I already knew whatever happens that's going to be unresolved is just going to be unresolved forever because we're rebooting. Like none of that shit's going to matter. And I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to separate art from the artist, because I never really know till I'm watching it, because there's been a lot of wacky stuff with Ezra.
It's Hollywood. Like there's too many of them.
For sure. If you're gonna take a stance against one, you got to take a stance against it for sure. But sometimes it's easy, sometimes it's not. And so I watched it and I had fun with pretty much the whole thing. I thought that it had a really good 3-act structure that was paced well, because the first act was just like classic time travel stuff with Barry and the classic elements that come into play with that. The second act was all about finding Batman and getting all those Keaton moments in there. And then the third act was revisiting Man of Steel. And so it kept me engaged throughout the whole thing and never felt like we were retreading familiar ground or running out of steam. And by the end of it, it didn't really bum me out so much, to my surprise, that some of the things they introduced aren't going to come to fruition or we're not going to see more of this. It felt successful enough for me as a standalone story. The only real issues I had with it was that there was a bit too much humor for me. They had kind of the Marvel problem a few times where you have a really good, solid emotional moment and they'd have like a little sight gag. And the CGI, which everybody has talked about, is just... I'll just say unacceptable for a movie with this amount of money put behind it. And I don't know if that's just an Andy Muschietti thing, because every movie I've seen by this guy, his CGI is dog shit. So I don't know if that's just his style. I don't know if he just works with one company and refuses to part ways with them, or if it's just a coincidence. But Mama, the 2 It movies in this have dog shit CGI.
Warner is notorious for shortcuts when it comes to stuff like that.
And yet the effects work on having the 2 Ezra Millers side by side constantly throughout the film is really seamless.
I didn't think it was, actually.
80% of the time, yes, but there were
a few times where it was something with his eyes, or so you could there was some sequences where you could pick out which one was the CG additive. But
it looked like a filter you'd see on TikTok or something. It looked just off.
And I'll say this as kind of the final bit of it too, because I've said this a lot here over the past year or so, which I already kind of talked about. Being that this is a movie going into multiverse and we're going to get cameos and we're going to get Easter eggs and everything, I actually had a lot more fun with this movie's version of that than I have the last handful of movies that have done that. I've kind of at a point where nostalgia is just like annoying to me, where it almost seems like it's cover up. It's like it's icing on the cake, but it's to cover up how shitty of a cake it is. Like, but Keaton's here. Don't pay too much attention.
Yeah, film culture.
Yeah, and so I've had a lot of movies, especially in comic books, the past number of years that feel like they're just relying on that to satisfy everybody, and I've been callous to it. And this one, I actually really enjoyed it. So even at the end, when the CG is pretty poor, I still got a good laugh out of Nick Cage showing up. I still thought it was a cool image to see certain ones popping up, even though narratively it leaves it in a weird spot. I laughed my ass off when George Clooney showed up. And so there was moments there where it worked pretty good for me. So,
be honest, who did you expect? Which Batman to
Keaton.
pop out?
Christian Bale.
I expected Bale.
I was hoping.
I was hoping it'd be Bale. They were probably giving him like a truckload of money. He's like, I ain't gonna fucking do that.
I knew immediately it wasn't him, because he wasn't talking to Barry like, "Did you like that video that I got for you in the courtroom? It's your dad. It's underrated. Swear to me."
If it had been Bale, I think I would have left the theater like, "Fuck yeah, that's awesome." Like he's the Batman now. But I left as soon as I saw Clooney. Let's go. We're getting the fuck out of here, because it was like a joke. So
a pseudo troll, but it was cute.
Yeah, but
at least it didn't have nipples. So.
Yeah,
I'm fairly certain. Actually, I shouldn't say I'm fairly certain. I'm positive, because I've had it confirmed since I've said this. But I was pretty sure it was going to be Michael Keaton. Just like, well, you almost fixed everything, because I knew that this was supposed to lead into Batgirl, and he was supposed to stick around as the DCEU Batman at one point, like 7 plans ago. And so I think after they decided we're not doing this anymore, they just swapped that out to get one more good audience reaction moment and not tease something that's never going to happen. And that's where you get the Clooney thing.
Yeah, we're never going to see him as Batman again. So here's closure.
They're not that crazy.
My thoughts on The Flash were, well, first off, I have to admit something. I've always been pretty good with managing my expectations. But I think I let those expectations get a little carried away when I saw James Gunn say it's a great movie, because I love James Gunn. I love what he did with Guardians. That's, of all the MCU films, I love what he's done. And I think as of right now, Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is the best comic book film of this year. I loved it.
Well,
can I just say, I know there's a lot of this kind of, oh, do they say that because they're getting paid to? Do they say it because they've got a lot?
I think he genuinely meant it.
In this case, I think James Gunn meant it, because you've got to remember that Gunn isn't just a filmmaker. He is a comic book nerd.
Yeah, exactly.
He is the guy who put something in Suicide Squad that means nothing to anyone but comic book fans. You know, he is the guy who, for his first Marvel project, picks the bunch of characters that no one but comic book nerds know. So I think him as a fan, as a proper DC fanboy, I think he would have been sat there looking at all the things going on and going, "Oh man, that's just the same way I was." So
and when he watched it, they're like, "I promise the CGI is not finished."
Yeah.
You saw like 6 months ago. Oh, it's gonna be done. It's gonna look a whole lot better.
Well, people were saying that when I put my review out. They're like, the movie doesn't come out for another week. They're not finished yet. I'm like, are you fucking high?
It's not a J.J. Abrams movie.
The original.
Got a dude run into the theater with the final reel.
Apparently, there is a 4-hour cut to this as well. So
of course,
I don't know if Gunn saw the 4-hour cut or
which version, right?
Yeah,
and plus it would be. It would be counterproductive to him. It's like, say this movie, it's not going to, but say this movie just was a massive hit, and Warner was like, "Hey, we know we told you to start with your thing, but we want to kind of do some stuff with this still. So can you just drop everything you were doing and intertwine this?" So for him to like plug it, like I agree with you, Brian. Normally when insiders say stuff like that, I would be cynical and say, yeah, they have a financial advantage. But in this case, I do agree with you, because why would he plug it and make his work harder?
Right. So again, I let my expectations get out of hand once I heard his thumbs up. And I love The Flash. I've loved the show back in the early 90s with the guy, I think John Wesley Shipp, when he was the original Flash. I grew up with that show. Then, of course, there's the CW show. The first 3 seasons were great after that. No, but that's one of our favorite shows. My son and I would watch every week. And I love the style and look. It looked like the Injustice type of version of Flash that we were going to get with the Zack Snyder universe, because I played the Injustice game. So yes, I was very excited to see it. And then after the Snyder cut, I'm like, yes, that's the type I wanted to see. But I knew his film was going to be comical, and I knew it was going to be funnier than the other. So I knew that walking in, but I just wasn't ready for the amount of humor and just how it was go the first 30 minutes. I told Cody and CP that I was so annoyed. I wanted to get up and leave. I was so annoyed with just Ezra Miller, them being 2 of them. The humor wasn't landing for me, especially that one scene where I guess the younger version gets the powers, he runs out, and then this band equipment comes out, and it's sort of playing like a song while he's naked. I just didn't get it, and just how he was annoying in my opinion. But then when Keaton shows up is when I started, okay, it's balancing out. They've kind of calmed him down, and now it's kind of getting to where it's supposed to be. So when Keaton arrived and then Sasha Calle showed up, I love her portrayal as Supergirl. I love the just the rawness she had, the anger, and the brutality she brought in as just not killing these soldiers left and right. So the film balanced out for me, but for me, it was really the CGI that took me out of the moment, because when I'm watching a film, and the older you get, I'm pretty sure all you guys can agree, we watch so many films, it takes a lot for me to fall into a film and forget I'm watching a movie. Like, that emotional feel, like it's quiet, you don't hear your kids around you, you're just involved and you feel every bit of emotion.
That's why I don't have kids.
well, regardless, but we all get into that state, right? And a sound, a phone, something could just take you out of that moment, and it pisses you off because you can't get back into it. It's
Some
like the Speed
asshole
Force.
lighting up the screen with his phone.
Somebody like, kill the bitch, in the theater, somebody will say something, right? But it takes a lot for me to get in that moment. But it's where the CGI took me out of the moment because it was so distracting. We're talking what was that Christmas movie back in the early 2000s when they meet Santa with Tom Hanks? It looked
Polar Express.
It looked Polar Express early 2000s bad. And then
Dead Eyes.
I love the fight sequence when Keaton took on that Kryptonian giant, but it was fake. It reminded me of the Green Goblin and Spider-Man fighting in Spider-Man 1. It just looked rubbery, and it just took me out of the moment. But the moment where everybody's talking about when the universes are colliding, I know on the storyboard it's going to be an emotional moment. We're bringing all generations together. It's going to just bring the fans, and we're just going to have a tear come down. I know they expected it to be that moment, that get. And it's a get that I know a lot of Marvel fans were hoping for with Multiverse of Madness. But there's so many theories on who was going to show up. This was their version of what they were expecting.
I was just going to say, I did get strong dollar store Doctor Strange vibes from what they were doing.
Yeah, let's give them what they want. They didn't deliver, but we are. So I can see that working on storyboard. Yeah, but the delivery is where I was let down. And I'm a big Christopher Reeve fan. He's my number one hero. I have tattoos of him, for Christ's sake. So when he showed up on screen, I got quiet because I didn't expect to see him, but I actually got quiet. And I actually got pissed because how he looked. I didn't like them using his likeness so poorly because Harold Ramis with Ghostbusters Afterlife, everyone was saying, oh, they're going to bring him back and it's going to look like shit. But no, it looked wonderful. With the respect and treatment they gave Harold Ramis, it looks pretty damn real. And that's why everybody was kind of cheering up at the end of Ghostbusters Afterlife. So I don't know. I was expecting more respect for those that have passed. If you're going to use their likeness in a movie, treat it with respect. I know their state has to sign off and do something, but just how it looked really bad. That really took me out of the moment. I laughed after I saw Nick Cage, and then I'm like, what? I'm like, it pissed me off. So I liked it, and I think I have to see it again because the expectations are already kind of done for. Maybe I'll like it more. I didn't hate it. I don't think it sucks. I think it was okay, and it could have been more. It could have been so much more.
In regards to the CGI and the effects, you're talking about the studio that rushes everything they possibly can, and they don't stop and think about what people want to see, what makes a good movie. They just rush, and they don't care about anything. Like that TikTok link you shared with us in the Facebook chat. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's probably the case, certainly with Warner, but bigger, more established studios like Disney, Marvel, ILM, those are all under the Disney property. That was part of the reason that Disney bought Lucasfilm out, was to have ILM. So Warner just, this is the company that just stopped releasing a movie for a tax write-off. It's like they're very cynically in the business of movie making.
Yeah. And the CGI has been great. Tell me I'm wrong, but I think the CGI in Man of Steel is wonderful, especially the fight sequences. They look really good. Okay, what film has great CGI?
No, you just tell you're wrong. I want
that. No, I really think Man of Steel CGI holds up to this day, especially the fight sequences. It doesn't look fake or rubbery. And that movie's from 10 years ago.
I don't think I don't remember DC having an issue with CGI. I literally just think this is an Andy Muschietti thing, and I wish I knew the answer to it. I don't know if it's just it could be a coincidence, but legitimately, like Mama, his first film, which lower budget, so you kind of just forgive it more, but especially the two It films, the CGI in those are horrendous, and that was a big issue for me with It Chapter 1. I don't want to go on it too long, but like I loved everything. I loved everything about it. Every time they went CG with the clown, I was like, this isn't fucking scary. This looks like a PS2 graphic, like Tim Curry all the way. That's how I was the whole time when I watched it because of the CGI. Yeah. And so when I watched this, and I'm like, dude, this is the worst of the four so far. What the fuck? And
it's like if you get like James Cameron, his effects guy is going to come up with something, and he's going to sit there and he's going to go, no,
yeah.
no. back again, guys. And I feel like maybe Machete's that guy who, when he's in the room, he doesn't want to offend his effects boys, and he's maybe like, oh yeah, it's good work, guys. I love it. Yeah,
I was just gonna say that could be a him thing where it's just like, all right, I'm curious to know if he has a producer credit where if he's watching money and it's just like, yeah, all right, if this works for you guys, have a good weekend, whatever, it's good enough.
Mm-hmm. And it's also possible too, I mean, to throw him a bone, even though his history doesn't satisfy this theory, it's also possible that they kept wanting reshoots and wanting to retool the movie, and that kept dipping into his post-production budget, and they were just like,
probably,
we need more money for this CGI, and they're like, well, sorry, this stuff's fucked regardless because we're starting again in 2 years, so just put it out.
Mm-hmm.
When did our lead actor start really getting in trouble? Was that before
March
or
of last
mid-production?
year?
Oh, so it was after production.
Yeah, all of last year basically, but I think it started in March.
Yeah, because he had a court order put against him to force him to come back to do reshoots.
A court order to do reshoots.
I think Brave and the Bold won't be as much of a problem because Batman is more hand-to-hand combat than CGI fest. Yeah, that's one thing I totally forgot, that Andy Muschietti, he's directing Brave and the Bold, right?
Let's not get too ahead of ourselves because, again, I don't know any details, but if I was to make an assumption, if they're going to keep the Matt Reeves Batman universe going, as well as the Joaquin Phoenix Joker movies going, then the only thing that makes sense to me is if they're going to do another version of Batman that's going to run simultaneous to that with the Brave and the Bold, that Batman is going to deal with all the more fantastical villains like Clayface and Man-Bat and a lot of the directions that we assume the Zack Snyder stuff is going to be going.
Matt Reeves has already announced that Clayface is the next.
But it's going to be it's just going to be like the Riddler. It's going to be super grounded, where I would assume that if they're going to run them simultaneously, then James Gunn's probably going to go, okay, all those villains that we could never do in our wildest dreams grounded, we're going to do all that with Brave and the Bold in the DC universe. Matt Reeves has got the ground level stuff. So there's probably going to be a lot of CGI in that movie. And I hope somebody whispers in his ear, or James Gunn at least can look and be like, no, Andy. No. Tell them to go back to the drawing board.
Because you just reminded me, in It Too, I know the kids grew up, but they had to like computer animate their faces to look younger.
Horrible.
And that looked horrible. So yeah.
Just remember the spider with the fucking clown face. That's what they thought the solution to it. Don't do the spider. Oh, we'll do the clown face. Well, that way it's still.
That'll get them. The kids love clowns. Yeah, like
and the little puddle at the end.
So that takes me to my next point. Did Keaton save the film? What do y'all think?
I
don't think the film needed saving.
No, I don't think he saved the film. He just made it more awesome. Like, you take Keaton out of that film, and our main character still has a really solid character arc. He goes on a journey, and he comes to a place of acceptance. And that moment where he comes to that place of acceptance is a really emotional sequence. Now, I don't know about you, but when I go and watch any movie, that's primarily what I'm looking for.
Right.
The main antagonist, the main character, I'm following them. I want them to go on a journey. I want them to be one way at the start of the film and another way at the end of the film. And I want to feel something as they go on that journey. And I thought, if you take all of the other crap out, if you take all the, the different stuff from all these different worlds and it's great, Keaton's back and all this, that, and the other, what you've got is actually a pretty good character journey. Wait,
you're saying without Keaton?
Yeah.
I think with Keaton, because he's going back to save his mother, Keaton, with his past being an orphan, I think he's the character that the Flash, Billy.
It adds some seasoning onto Barry's arc.
But Barry. Yeah, but like what I'm saying is that if you take like, to me, everything that they do with Keaton's Batman and with Supergirl enhances that journey that that the Flash is going on. Okay, that Barry Allen's going on.
I agree.
So
I think if you take Keaton's Batman out, though, it really it's crucial.
But my point is that a lot of people are just saying, "Oh, it's riding on the fact that it's just got Keaton back as Batman."
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's not.
The marketing certainly was.
Yeah,
the marketing certainly was, but what it's riding on is the fact that actually it's got a really solid character arc for our main character, which is what makes it a Flash movie. It's his journey, and all these supposed, just throwing Keaton's Batman and Supergirl in there actually feeds in to that main character arc of the Flash, because you've got Flash relating to this older guy whose life was dictated by the loss of his parents and can relate to him in some way, and so there's a reason for him to be there rather than simply being, we've got to get Keaton in this film somehow. There's a reason for it, and it feeds into our main character's story. So for me, no, it doesn't ride on Keaton being in it. It's just it's just a well-told story that for me, I'll go back to what I said before. I was really surprised how much I cared about Flash in this when all I was coming to this film for was Keaton. So to come away from it having been engrossed in Flash's journey, not just waiting for the Keaton moments, is a real testament to what they've done with the film.
The message you highlight from Bansilverse, Muschietti said he purposely made
a couple of days after the public response started to come out, the week that I saw the film, he released a statement or did an interview where he said that CG style was intentional because when he's in the Speed Force, his perspective is skewed a little bit.
Right.
And I asked Rudy to highlight that because bullshit.
You're
I understand playing the corporate game and not wanting to throw somebody on under the bus, and even because that's one of the biggest criticisms that everybody was agreeing on, even trying to deflect some of that to get more people to give faith and go see the movie. But to me, that's turning it around on the viewer and saying it's a you problem. Like the CGI is fine, you're the one that didn't understand it, and that pisses me off.
Winnie the Pooh.
It's absolutely thank you. It's when it's throughout the entire movie, it's not just when he's in the Speed Force and there's other elements of the CGI. No, the CGI was just bad.
Yeah.
Like, good on you for playing the corporate guy. I got nothing against Andy Muschietti, and good on you for not throwing somebody under the bus, but don't turn it around on the viewers and say that this was intentional. It's just, no, fuck that. It wasn't.
And maybe there's some truth in that statement because it was intentional because they just didn't give the artist enough time to render it to what it could have been. So, we can't get to that level. Let's just go with that. So
when he's saying intentional, he's saying that we purposely made it look all glossy in PS2 era that was a creative choice. That was completed graphics. That was just our choice. No, it wasn't.
And if you go to the movie theater this weekend or last weekend, you literally have the choice between something called The Flash or Spider-Man Through the Spider-Verse, which could be one of the most pretty animated movies in a while. So like to like speak down to an audience like that, like, yeah, no, I did that on purpose. You just didn't get it, bro. I don't know.
Well, I mean, and I get the intentional piece. I don't. And when you think about the past, like what other films have had a speedster? You have the X-Men films with Quicksilver, which are some of the best I've seen.
Yeah.
And then the Eternals movie, I know not a lot of people didn't like it, but that speedster did have, some cool effects. And then again, Zack Snyder's Justice League, it can be done right and look great. So like I said, a lot of that CGI just took me out of it. As far as Keaton saved, that looked like a doll going into like a fake microwave, man. Like, my God.
Oh, let me take a bite of this burrito real quick.
Well, he needs to eat. That's like he needs calories to fuel his thing. Anyway,
I think it is primarily that thing of him trying to remain a team player at Warner Brothers.
I respect that.
But they kept giving him work, sure.
Yeah, I would give him the benefit of the doubt. I know he's had a past of having crappy CGI. I do think he needs to take a bit more of a Cameron approach, though, and not just accept certain stuff. But I do think that given that this isn't a film where they started with a clear vision and just saw that through, this is a film where they had a vision, that vision changed, and that vision got mixed with another vision, then that vision got swiped over there, and they brought stuff. Like, he was probably working like right up to the wire on this, because they've oh shit, we've got another thing.
All the studio notes and changes.
So I can be quite forgiving. I would be more forgiving if, when people said it's crap CGI, he just went, and let people decide for themselves, like, rather than trying to get defensive.
Or take the Michael Bray approach, and before the movie comes out, be like, look, there's some shit CGI in this movie, okay?
Prepare yourself.
Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe in the editing bay that, you know, while the heat was on Ezra, I wouldn't be surprised if he was like, all right, we gotta get more Batman and Supergirl in this, and like, I couldn't imagine being a filmmaker where the lead of your film is in that level of shit. So, you know, who knows what they were doing behind the scenes and what they were altering or fixing, or, I mean, because Aquaman 2, they've all but said Amber Heard is an extra.
Yeah. And the reason I brought up the Keaton piece is that I know, like, Brian, like you and I, we love the Flash, and we were looking at the Flash as a character, but the majority of people that I know who are MCU fans are always talking shit about the DC. Everybody went to go see it because of Keaton. Everybody I've talked to who's not even a big, just a general audience fan. Like, I don't watch these films, but I'm gonna go see Keaton again because I grew up with him. So I asked that, and I listened to all the reviews after I posted mine, and everyone says the same thing. The film was good, but Keaton was a highlight. Seeing him again was a highlight. So it's like, I feel if Keaton wasn't in it, it would have been, I would not have had a good time, because, like I said, the humor was just just out there, and Keaton just brought a balance. Well, I feel that he did, and the treatment of Keaton's character, I felt, was like, and also like a nod of respect to what Burton had done, seeing the old gadgets and how much do you weigh, things, all those little inside jokes. I really enjoyed it. So it just, yes, it was nostalgia and remember berries, but again, it was done right, and I enjoyed it. But again, I feel that Keaton did save it.
But Barry, the character, is 18 in that movie. He's a bit of a skater dork. And he finds out, like, he literally finds out that he travels in time. And then, you know, he's just in awe with everything. Like, how would you be if you from the future came at age 18 and told you, you're going to have powers? And again, the baby in the microwave really, it was a low point. But like, when I appreciated the little moments of, like, just how, like, starstruck he was by certain things. Like when they were at the Bat Cave, and he's like, "Look, this bag laughs," and it's like, cute. I get that.
There's a real distinction between the two Barrys. That's the thing, and it's like, and there's one scene in particular where our Barry kind of he gets angry at this more kind of immature Barry, because he's not quite understanding the stakes. And I just thought that scene was so well played, because you felt that these were two genuinely different people, based on, you know,
sure. I mean, the upbringing. Completely different upbringing.
Where this one life could have gone, and it's dovetailed into two. You do, and I think it's quite a hard thing to do when you're acting against yourself, to keep this character over here and then keep that character over here and throw them at each other and have it be quite a cohesive thing. I just thought it was incredible. Again,
I think the scene where Bruce and our Barry are discussing why he hasn't told immature Barry, and immature Barry is eavesdropping. I thought, like, that was the turning point where, like, he shit, I have to grow up. I have to take this seriously.
It also explains why he keeps wanting to try to save everybody at the end. So
Yep.
The whole thing with Barry, again, I applaud Ezra, despite I can separate the artist from the talent, and to act in two different roles and two different ages is a challenge for anybody. So I really loved his performance. Like I said, the scene where he has to say bye to his mother, that brought a tear to my eye. So again, he did a great job. Again, the only thing is just the humor was a little too much. And to your point, CP, maybe in my second watch, the humor won't be too much. I think it was just a little bit overwhelming because I wasn't expecting that much. And you guys know me. Every movie we've talked about, I've been very critical about humor. Like, hey, there's a place for it, but too much of it just
fucking Zach would never do this.
Zach would never do that, He's a blueprint.
Too much
damn it.
color.
I want sadness, I want real life.
It's only 2.5 hours long.
And again, I think in hindsight, watching it again, to your point, CP, when he hears about that his mother's gonna die, it'll all make sense. Like, hey, he was at one point like this, and now he's like that. So I think I'll like it more the second time around. But right now, I just feel it was okay.
Per your question there, I'm kind of along the same lines as Brian. Keaton didn't save the film for me, and I'm actually least capable of Keaton saving the movie because I had the least amount of nostalgia, I assume, for the four of us here. To me, it was just it was seasoning on top of what was already kind of cooking and working pretty good. Mm-hmm. Now I'll ask this because I know, especially you, Rudy, been more passionate about this. So you say that Keaton's appearance saved the movie for you and made it tolerable and kept you in the seat where you wanted to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Take the same exact movie. Obviously, you have to imagine, but take the same exact movie and just put Jeffrey Dean Morgan Batman in there that has no nostalgia attached to it with the same exact storyline. Mm-hmm. Does it still work? Does it still save the movie for you?
I don't think they'll release it.
Oh, that's an entirely different movie as well.
No, it'd still work. It would still work.
Well, because we're talking a totally different tone. I mean, that Batman was violent. He had a gun.
The script. I think Batman's crucial.
That Batman doesn't exist in that universe. So the point is, you give that Batman, right? Let's put as Cody said, put Jeffrey Dean Morgan in that role, give him the exact same dialogue that Keaton's Batman has in this. It doesn't change anything.
There's a huge different tone, though. He was way more violent.
Well, so was Keaton in the Tim Burton films. I'm just saying.
But
the movie's going to be the same.
You're talking about the comic book, like
in the anime. Yeah,
there's no precedent for that character within the film world. Mm-hmm. So I'm talking about general audience. You stick Jeffrey Dean Morgan in there in that role, so nobody's going to it because Michael Keaton's back as Batman. Right, general film audience, they see this film with this script. Only Jeffrey Dean Morgan is in that role. It doesn't change anything with regards to what happens to the characters and the story and all that.
It just doesn't have nostalgia.
It doesn't have nostalgia.
So does it still work?
You know what? I think for us fans it would work, but for the general audience who went to see it just because of Keaton, no, it would have made less money.
I think because as far as the story's concerned, it's the script is fine, the story's told well. As far as the cynical business end, Warner had to exploit the fact that remember berries. Cody talked about it before. You need a name to sell, especially to counterbalance what's going on with Ezra. So. It's pretty clear everybody went and saw it day one based on Keaton. I'm curious to see how it does this weekend.
Everybody but me.
I think also the people that did go to see it because of Keaton, they're of a certain generation. Like you've got to bear in mind that people in their 20s at the moment, like early 20s, their Batman is not Keaton. Their Batman is Bale or Affleck. So the fact that the Vulture is showing up in a DC movie as Batman is neither here nor there to him. Like literally, my sister-in-law, so she's in her late 20s or mid to late 20s, and she went to see the film the other day, and I asked her what she thought, and she said, I really liked it, but I found it confusing seeing the Vulture as Batman. And I'm like,
but that fucking infuriated Brian. Get out of my house.
Yeah. So I was like, he was Batman in 2 movies, right? It's like, yeah. but she's not seen those two movies. You know, she's gone to it and she's been told, yeah, he was Batman and he's back, and she's like, oh, okay, I know him as Vulture. So it's not this thing where people in their 20s are like, I've got to see this because Keaton's back as Batman. They're like, what, wasn't he Batman at some point in the you know, way back when? So there's no nostalgia there for them. The nostalgia on that front is for people our age. Or, like, I mean, look, like Cody's the youngest of us, right? And he's the one out of the four of us that's like, yeah, I don't really have that nostalgia because I don't think Keaton is his Batman. Bale is his Batman. There is that fine line. So I think most of the people that have been to see it opening weekend are of R3's kind of generation where there is that nostalgia there. But I think with regards to anyone younger than that, I think the nostalgia factor of Keaton has probably been oversold, to be honest.
Yeah. But part of it is, I mean, the multiverse thing has kind of been a thing. It's a little too meta, and it's you know, I'm starting to get multiverse fatigue, if I'm being honest, between Rick and Morty, the Avengers, Doctor Strange, and like Spider-Man. Like it's just, all right, guys, how many possibilities? Like, you're just acknowledging the fact that we made a mistake. Here's Nicolas Cage finally 25 years later because multiverse. So I think that's something that Gen Z and so on are used to. So like, oh, Birdman's playing Batman. That's interesting.
Yeah. I think multiverse and nostalgia has kind of started to burn people out. I mean, it was just 2 weeks ago we had a multiverse film with Across the Spider-Verse. Yeah. And this film probably would have really succeeded if they had gotten it out sooner, because it's been sitting around for over a decade. And by the time they got it out, 5 other movies did their concept first. And also just the CW did their version. Exactly. The whole marketing scheme of, well, just in case you don't care about the Flash, look who's back as Batman, baby. Like, how many times have we had that be the marketing trick over the past couple times? I mean, Multiverse of Madness, what happens? It ends with the fucking wheelchair coming out. And it's like, oh, really? And that's what they do now. And so I think that all 3 of those, the multiverse fatigue, a lot of the current movie-going audience not necessarily having the nostalgia for Keaton, and even if they do, they're just like, another movie that's just trying to bait me with nostalgia.
Yeah. I think the key for any of these movies going forward is, nostalgia's fine, whatever, but any character from a previous universe that you bring in to your multiverse movie has to have some kind of character-specific payoff from their previous stuff.
Yes.
Like if you look
like
at
Andrew Garfield.
Yeah. What works so well about Spider-Man No Way Home is Andrew Garfield got a payoff because he caught Mary Jane.
Yeah.
So for anyone who knows that's not just a nostalgia thing. It's like, holy crap, they brought him back and gave us a really emotional moment because we know what that means to that character. That's such a payoff for him from a character perspective. Tobey Maguire as well, you know, getting to
get through to the Green Goblin.
To get through to the Green Goblin, and even like tell Spider-Man not to go down the road that he's going because he's been down there. It's a character payoff. It's taking something from the previous movies and it's using it to build on that character. That's what you have to do. Just simply throwing the character up on screen so people go, oh, that's not enough. That's nostalgia, and we don't need it. It's worthless once you get to rewatches and stuff. So yeah, multiverse movies, don't do them. Don't bring characters in unless you're going to give them some kind of payoff from their previous films that they were in.
Yeah. And Cody, to go back to your point about Jeffrey D. Morgan, I've been thinking about it since you asked me. And honestly, and if you've seen the anime or read the book, like Jeffrey D. Morgan writes a letter and gives it to Flash. He gives it to Bruce. So when Flash goes back in time, he gives Bruce a letter from his dad. So there's an emotional moment, and I guess arc and closure for Batman, which is pretty cool. And that they would have to have been bring back Ben Affleck for that scene. And I think it would have been a poignant and powerful moment. And I think I would have loved it.
I would have preferred that as the guy that didn't need Keaton. I would have preferred that.
Yeah, I would have loved that film. And plus, I think it ends on a better note versus like George Clooney walking out. So I think going that route would have made it better because it's something we haven't seen yet. And I think the fans were kind of already expecting that after BVS in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But I want to ask everybody this. Why did it fail?
How long do we have?
Well, I figured 1 hour and 30 minutes is good for everybody. I know you're going,
there's that was a joke. Just
okay.
A multitude
4 hour live.
Yeah.
So many reasons.
Look,
who wants to go first?
I think all of the cards were stacked against this movie, quite literally all of them. I mean, even if Ezra Miller had a great 2022, you have just the built-in bias against DC that is partially earned, partially unearned, because they've had a spotty track record with the quality of their movies, constantly changing direction, who's in charge of them. This is our Batman. This is our Batman. We're going to do this. Well, never mind. We're going to do this. You can never get a handle on what the hell their plan is until here recently, and hopefully it comes to fruition where they say, we're starting again, and these guys are going to carry it all the way. So there's that. There's that built-in lack of investment because nobody knows what the hell's going on. And while these movies should survive on their own merits, that's just not the way that comic book films are trained. They have trained their audiences here recently. It's all about, okay, this has to be good, but also how does this tie in? And is this stuff going to pay off 3 movies from now? All of that. Mm-hmm. You also have the fact, like I said, we already talked about with the multiverse fatigue, with the fact that this is like the 5th or 6th movie in 4 years to do this. You have nostalgia fatigue built into there as well. Then you can toss in all of the Ezra Miller stuff. And even just here recently, whether it's all because of the DC reboot or not, but DC's not on an uptick, they're on a downtick. I mean, you had, let's see, what was it? Birds of Prey that came out, only made $200 million. That
was a great movie.
You had, which because of COVID, but point still withstanding, you had Wonder Woman 84 and then the Suicide Squad especially that really underperformed. Then you had Black Adam, which I don't even know if that broke even. You had Shazam 2, which absolutely tanked. And so the last 3 years of DC is just tick, 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 to where even though this has Michael Keaton in it, even though it looked good, even though there's certain excitement behind it, people are, especially with streaming nowadays, where this movie is probably going to be on VOD within 60 days. People are trained that
within 30.
Yeah, people are trained to where if there's not like Marvel at least has, at least until recently here, they always had a pretty consistent guarantee of quality to where people are willing to go out and spend their money that they're trying to save on $7 popcorn and $12 sodas and everything like that. Mm-hmm. You get a movie like this where the universe or the studio has shown that over the past 3 years, they're very spotty at best with delivering. People are just going to wait. And then you also have the overhype, which you were talking about at the very beginning, to where everybody and their mother in the industry is telling you this is going to change your life. And I think nowadays people are more akin to be skeptical of a movie because of that. Because especially on Twitter, something that I've been bitching about all this year is even just people within our space. You get to go see these movies on premieres or press screenings or whatever, and so many of them are just racing to get to Twitter to find the most hyperbolic, praiseworthy tweet possible that just sugarcoats the entire movie like it was this religious experience that changed their life.
Yeah, they're trying to get pull quotes.
Yeah,
trying to get pull quoted, trying to get retweeted, trying to get reinvited, trying to get on the Blu-ray cover. And then what happens is all the people that watch us that trust these opinions then get their expectations high, like Rudy's. They go to the movie, their expectations fuck them. And so now, whenever they see the same exact person saying The Flash is one of the greatest comic book movies ever, you're like, yeah, whatever. I'll wait. I'll wait till it's on streaming and we'll see about that. Or I'll wait for the first group of people to go see it that weekend and really find out what's happening. So
the thing is, it's only people like us who are so invested in movies and whatnot and talk about them all day on YouTube and things like that actually watch things like James Gunn's statement, "This is the best movie ever made," and it's us who say, "Yeah, that's bollocks. It's hyperbole and all that." Whereas the general audience don't even get to see the fact that James Gunn has said it's the best comic book movie ever made because they're not bothered. They're concerned with other things. And I think the things that they're concerned with have pointed them in the direction away from this movie, which is primarily, I don't know what these DC movies are all about, to be honest, because we've got Robert Pattinson with the Batman. It doesn't seem to be related to this movie that's coming out, The Flash, that seems to be related to some of the other DC movies, but not all the DC movies seem to relate to each other, because you've got one that's the same movie, but like longer and a bit. It's just all up in the air, and they're hearing all the time that it's. I just think there's too much confusion. There's too much. Your nostalgia card only hits for a certain generation, so that the Michael Keaton thing doesn't do anything for anyone below the age of 30, unless, as I say, they're like us and really into, so anyone in the comment section here that is of a lower age, they might be hit by that nostalgia because they're big film fans. General audience, not going to give a toss. You're a general audience member and you're in your 20s. You don't give a toss. Michael Keaton's coming back as Batman. There's no nostalgia there. You just want to see a film, and you want to know that you're going to understand it when you go in. And with DC, chances are you won't, because you haven't.
Yeah.
To a degree, Marvel still has that appointment movie theater going experience. I mean, for Ant-Man to make $100 million in February just proves how people just like, oh, Marvel, something from Avengers, I'm there. Yeah. Whereas DC, I don't think fans have been burned by them so many times, and you factor in the lead character, and somebody else said it, that they know that this is going nowhere, so there's so many things against it, and plus, like, there's people that, like, when you see Batgirl was a completed film and they just scrapped it for money. Like, what? Why should I mean, when it comes to Warner, fans are just like, we want what Snyder made. We want what you're not doing. We want everything about what you're not shoving down our throats. So, yeah, it's a weak performer, and I think for the most part, especially in the age of COVID, people will probably watch it, but they won't get around to it until they go watch it on their couch.
No, but they'll come out for Spider-Man. They'll risk COVID to go see Spider-Man.
Damn right.
I got to say, I do actually respect. I mean, I want to see it because I'm a Batman fan. I'll watch anything with Batman related. But I do have to say, I was one of the few people who said that I actually respected the decision by James Gunn and Peter Safran to not release Batgirl, because
I did as well.
They said they saw the film and
everybody but Brendan Fraser has said that thing was disastrous.
And it would do more damage releasing it than it would to just wash their hands of it. And like, you say they got a tax write-off and whatnot, but they still lost money on that film. There's no two ways about it.
You've got the streaming service that, who knows?
But it still would have been.
Yeah, but it's if you release another film that is a dog turd, and people are just like, oh man, I've so had it with this. Like the damage to your reputation for so long because people bring it up and bring it up. And
here's an example. Here's a perfect example.
Why release a movie where Ezra Miller is your lead star?
Well, you say that,
because
but
they believe it's good.
Don't care. And if the movie's good, they're going to go see it.
Then Hollywood, like everybody, you can't just absolutely erase Amber Heard from a movie because of her troubles with the law. And
she's
then
probably in this much of the movie, though.
Yeah,
so
she's not the Flash.
Significant work difference. We'll cut the two scenes that she's in versus we have to replace every scene of the movie.
That's
the problem with The problem with DC is they can't even get star power to carry their movies. I mean, The Rock is that is a certified blockbuster star, and Black Adam just didn't do well. What are you wincing about?
The Rock, I think he's a marketable guy, but he's not like a draw. Not anymore. That's just me. I don't know. All right. Just saying, you know.
I think his star has lost a little shine over the past couple of years, but I understand what you're saying. But here's a perfect point to let's say all movies are subjective. Maybe a lot of us would have liked Batgirl, but let's take most of the opinions that I've heard for granted and say that Batgirl was not going to be very good. Mm-hmm. We use the example of Morbius. Morbius was a movie that they tossed around for 2 years and advertised for 2 years. And I highly doubt anybody involved with that saw the final cut thought that thing was going to be good. Mm-hmm. And I was somebody that liked the Venom movie.
Part 1.
I saw Morbius. They have this Kraven the Hunter movie. I don't even care because Morbius was so bad. And I'm like, dude, until you regain my faith, I don't even know if I'm going to see it. Well, I'm going to see it because I work here. But you know what I mean? If I wasn't a YouTube person, I would be like, we'll wait.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if I hadn't seen Morbius, I'd be day one Kraven.
It's building blocks as well because, Venom was all right. Like it's entertaining, but it's in a 3-star film kind of way. Yeah. It's not like Blow Me Away. So they had the sequel to Venom where you really had a chance to build on it, improve it, and make something better. And they didn't. And it was like, oh, okay, Venom's on shaky ground, but okay, we've got Morbius coming in this same world. That could be. Now that was a total bomb.
Yeah.
So now you're just like, I have no faith in this universe. So you can make the trailer to Kraven the Hunter look as good as you want, but it's not going to make me want to really see the film anymore. Yeah. And it's the same with DC. If you've got a pretty bad track record as it stands anyway, you're already cleaning quite a lot of mess up. The worst thing you can do is release a film that everyone around it knows is crap. Mm-hmm. And the fact that Gunn and Safran didn't do a political thing where they patted the filmmakers on the back and said, "Oh no, they're good guys," and they literally dissed their film. They've gone on record in public and said, "Yeah, these guys who made this film, they made a piece of shit.
Yeah,
we're not releasing it." Now that's got to burn some bridges with regards to those filmmakers. So that was a very tough decision to make, I reckon, but I really respect it. Because what they're thinking is, right, we've got a long-term game plan. We need to end the films that have got coming. We know that they're not going in, but they can still do certain amount of damage. So we need to do damage control as best we can. We're going to release the ones that we know they're decent and we'll actually get an audience. We cannot release the ones that we know are terrible. Yeah, that's just so.
Taking your own selfish wants out of it, because I know we at least like this movie. Brian loved it. Do you think that they should have just done that with the 4 remaining films that they had? Like, we got Blue Beetle coming out, we got Aquaman 2 coming out, and with this not succeeding, I don't think those movies have a shot in hell of making any money.
That was one of my last topics here. I don't think there's any hope at all.
Do you think they should have just scrapped all of them?
I think Aquaman 2, I think they should have just come flat out and just said, we're replacing Amber Heard, we're bringing someone else in. And I think if they did that, everyone would be so on board for that film. They'd have a lot more respect for Warner Brothers. It'd make them want to go and see it. Aquaman is the only DC movie from this current run to have crossed the $1 billion mark at the box office.
The Joker, but we're not counting that, right? It was like
no. Okay. I mean, like within the DCEU.
Okay.
So you've got a lot of like people like us, the big film fans that have a lot of respect for James Wan, who will go and see a film because it's directed by James Wan. Jason Momoa right now is really hot. Everyone says he's the best thing about Fast X.
Because he is.
Because he is. So she she is the one thing I think that is the real hurt. And there's a lot of talk as well about Jason Momoa remaining in the DCEU. So even the people who know, like the people who are like proper fans, they've still got a reason to go and see it because, you know, they know that, there might be some things in that one that do carry over. So for me, Aquaman 2, you spend the money by taking Amber Heard out, put someone else in, and that movie does a ton at the box office. Blue Beetle doesn't stand a chance in hell.
Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is the 5th highest grossing international box office star with $8.4 billion worth in 37 movies. Robert Downey Jr. is 8th with $7.8 billion in 55 movies. So,
well, Red Notice, was it not last year or year before? So Red Notice the year before was the highest grossing film in Netflix history.
Mm-hmm.
Red
Notice.
Red
with
Notice.
him and Ryan Reynolds and
Gal. Oh, I didn't see
that. Yeah. So like that, that made so much, like that brought in so many viewers for Netflix that they literally greenlit a sequel like that.
He's also the highest grossing actor of 2018, 2019, and then 2020, and then COVID happened and throw all the rules out the book. But
yeah,
I appreciate your point, Rudy.
Mm-hmm. I don't give a shit. He made Rampage, dude. I mean, anyway, real quick.
You like how like 13 minutes of discussion went by and CP was just sitting there waiting,
typing away.
I'm like, okay, get done so that I can come back to this argument from 18
well,
minutes
I was
ago.
looking it up.
I don't care.
Stubborn bastard.
Well, you're wrong. The math proves you're wrong. That's all.
It's like saying Michael Bay films are masterpieces because they grossed $1 billion. I mean,
I didn't say masterpieces. I said moneymaker. And Michael Bay.
Okay, there's money and then there's quality. I mean, I'll take quality over the money, but I know the movie studios want the money.
But we all know that films that are not of high quality do often make the most at the box office.
Fast X
Fast
is
and the Furious,
killing
$1 billion each.
Pirates of the Caribbean sequels, loads of them crack the billion. You know, you got it's still a fan base of crap.
It's like studio heroin. Those movies.
Yeah. And I think you guys touched on this, the why it failed piece. Again, there's no trust in the DCU. These were my thoughts. It's like going back to a Toxic X. It's going to be different, babe, and you give it a chance. Okay, you go, and then it's the same thing.
I'll tell you what we haven't discussed. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but something to bring up that I know I'm terrible. I think that the moment that they absolutely lost the last bit of goodwill that they had left was with Black Adam. Because they got everybody pumped. Well, everybody that was waiting for it pumped and excited. Okay, finally Henry Cavill's coming back. Maybe. Then
there's no trust.
Was it even 2 weeks after that movie came out that they said, never mind, fuck you guys?
Yeah. The MCU, for all its brilliance, and again, I may not like all the films, but they more or less changed the movie going audience. Now people are going because they want to be part of a larger story. This is a piece of something bigger for these type of films, right? And they have done it beautifully. Like, people are trying to replicate it and they're failing, and DC has been falling on their ass. And I don't blame the actors, of course, or the filmmakers. It's just the studio execs and just shit leadership.
Reactionary.
And that leadership is stemming and now affecting the seats. Because, like, why are we going to go? Like, why am I going to see Blue Beetle or the Aquaman? This was a great reset. Now it's starting over. James Gunn is building a hole in the universe, so we're not vested anymore. Nobody cares. And again, for the market share place is dominantly owned by the MCU. So those fans that are hoping to get in the theater, nobody cares no more because they're starting over. And again, they should just shelve Blue Beetle and Aquaman because they're going to just perform poorly. It's going to be bad.
Aquaman's what, December?
Yeah, I just don't see people going to the movie theater to see that.
Here's the other thing about Aquaman. We haven't seen a single frame of that movie yet.
Yeah.
They have tinkered with it and reshot it and reformed it so much. Like, I've heard Sean say it a number of times. He has mutual friends that saw a test screening of that movie a year ago.
Wow.
And the same people that have seen test screenings of that film recently said the movie is unrecognizable from the one that they saw a year ago. So on that same point about we should just scrap because they're gonna bomb at the box office. Here's an interesting question. So we know that James Gunn is rebooting this thing and Saffron, and Superman Legacy in 2025 is first step of that. I think next year all we're getting is the Joker sequel. So we're going to get like a year
and
of
that animated
DC
series that he's starting as well on
Creature Commandos or whatever.
Yeah.
So we're going to get about a year of DCEU palette cleanse before they start again with Superman Legacy. I think it's pretty sound to say that the first maybe 2, maybe even 3 movies of this new DC reboot universe, even if they're great, are probably not going to kill it at the box office.
Yeah.
Just because they're still going to be having to gain
apprehension
goodwill
like,
back.
Yeah.
They're still going to have to gain goodwill back. So like say Superman Legacy does great, just like with Man of Steel. I think Man of Steel is awesome. Didn't like blow the lid off the box office. It was like, okay, it did pretty good. So they're probably going to have 2-3 movies of modest success, maybe even lose a little bit of money there. Do you think that audiences, and maybe even more importantly, WB, are going to let this new universe actually go through its proper growing pains? Or do you think they're going to freak the fuck out the way that they did when BVS came out and they're going to go, oh, change this, do this, move this, cut this?
That's a good question. I don't know, but doesn't James Gunn and Peter Safran, I think his partner, right? Like, don't they have complete control over that say now? I mean, unlike Zach and the previous people,
they aren't signing the checks.
They don't control the money. The fact they get to make creative decisions,
creative control, right?
But the moment their films are not making money, people above them have the right to go, oh, actually,
yeah.
I honestly think that, and like my personal opinion is, I'm so much more excited by the prospect of Elseworld stuff.
Me too.
Like Matt Reeves' Batman. The Joker stuff, that to me is the stuff that like I can't wait for.
Same.
Because it's contained, it's within its own world. We don't have to go to any other movies to fill in any blanks or anything. And I'm actually over this whole cinematic universe stuff. Marvel for me ended after Endgame. Once Endgame finished, I kind of liked Black Widow, but it wasn't necessary. And then other than Guardians 3 and Spider-Man No Way Home, everything else has just been for me.
Kind of feels like Dexter after season 4. It's like we're still going, huh?
But before we move any further, as far as the financials are concerned.
More Rock financials? Is that what you're going to talk about?
No. You said Aquaman.
Just saying, in 2018, The Rock brought home $3 million in taxes.
We're talking about Aquaman.
3-time WWE champion.
We're talking about Aquaman. You talked about studios, and what they care about is money. So Aquaman, which has the guy who's currently in the highest grossing movie in the world, and he's probably the highlight of Fast X in Jason Momoa. The original Aquaman is the 6th highest grossing international box office movie internationally. So it doesn't matter what Aquaman does here. Warner sees those numbers from fucking China, India, wherever, and they're like 6th highest. Well, you know, we got nothing to lose. And we got Universal doing us some marketing, because I don't know about you guys, but I think Jason Momoa is a refreshing taste of.
I like him.
In Fast X. It's just like he's the one guy who is acting in the right movie, where Vin Diesel's acting like. And
to your point,
what the hell?
Yeah, part 1 was fantastic. He's fantastic, and I love part 1. It was a fun movie to go see. What I fear is that it's going to have the same problem as The Flash did. You got a couple of years of rewrites and trying to take out Amber Heard. It's going to just be a mess. When it finally gets out there, and it's going to just be a bad story, and nothing against Jason Momoa, but it's just all this meddling and just trying to change things up because of, directions. And now James Gunn, I think that's what I think is going to plague the film, not himself.
I don't disagree with you. I just think Warner Brothers, again, corner cutting, cash in their eyes, and they see, all right, Jason Momoa is in the biggest movie of 2023. We got him at the tail end. Maybe people in India are really going to be fired up about this, so let's do this.
They could have
I
done
don't
the same
disagree
exact
with you.
thing for Batgirl, though, in multiple ways. Because, first of all, anything with bat in the name is just printing money for the most part. Usually.
I do not disagree.
They could have very disingenuously and easily have rode the train of, we got a black Batgirl. We're woke, guys.
Don't give it to China, though.
Yeah. You also have Brendan Fraser coming back in a big blockbuster, a big movie after his
People
Oscar
love him.
win.
People love him.
They could have marketed the fuck
bring
out of
him
that
back
movie
in
6 Ways from Sunday.
Oscar winner Brendan Fraser as the villain.
So I don't know. I'm of the opinion, selfishly as a fan, I still want to see them because if I enjoy them, I'd rather just have them. But it is an interesting question that I was talking about, where it's just like, if they're that worried about the public perception of DC, especially with this reboot, like I think that they needed at least 2 years between the end of the DCEU and the start of the new one to wash the kind of the taste out of people's mouth. I don't even think a year is enough time. And they're starting with Superman. So they're starting with their heavy hitter. They're not starting with Suicide Squad 3 or anything like that to kind of slowly build the blocks. They're starting fucking right out of the gate running.
Yeah.
And
or have Flash be the last DC movie, like release Blue Beetle, then Aquaman, and then Flash be the
universe.
Reset. Yeah.
Like, do a reshoot and that's what I thought, because that's what James Gunn kept saying. This resets the universe. It doesn't feel like it resets anything, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And they would have more time to finish up the CGI. It would have been better. Like a great finale to what could have been.
Yeah.
When did James Gunn sign on?
I don't know when he signed on, but publicly it was earlier this year, whenever they started publicly saying that he's going to be in charge, like February, March, somewhere in there was when they started making announcements. It was sometime around March, I think, when he did that little video where he was saying the first 10 movies that were going to come out or whatever. And it was like right after Black Adam.
And they wrapped filming in 2022 for Flash?
2021, October.
They sat on it for a whole year with the changing of
Max,
the
Discovery.
The acquisition, and then all of that different thing. And then Ezra, they were just like, fuck, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
But what I fear is that they're gonna have this reboot and they're gonna have all the best intentions. They're gonna do really well, but just certain fans are not gonna allow it. It doesn't matter how good Superman Legacy could be, objectively the best Superman film that we ever see in our lives. And I guarantee you the first fucking comment I'm going to see is restore the Snyderverse.
Yeah. As a diehard Snyder fan, it's done. It's done. I do trust James Gunn, and I think he has the trust of movie going audiences, not just in the MCU, but in general, especially with studio execs as well. So I think he's got that trust. And, I know it's late where you're at, Brian and Cody. I know you got some plans and all that, so I want to keep it under 2 hours to be respectful of everybody's time. I want to ask everybody, what could have saved The Flash? What do you think could have saved it to make it become like a blockbuster or the $1 billion movie that they were hoping?
If it came out 3 to 5 years sooner.
Back in 2018, yeah.
Honestly.
No COVID.
It's like, the thing is, you got to remember, like, Marvel always seems to kind of, they manage to appear as though they're,
yeah. And let's say, to your point, it didn't have to make a billion. Let's say it just be successful, like, critically acclaimed, it was done, and it made its money back. So something like that.
Spider-Man No Way Home was essentially a reaction to this film. And it just so happens that this film fell behind, and then No Way Home came out first. And then everyone says, True. DC are doing a multiverse movie. They're just copying Marvel.
I had that comment where they're like, so this is basically just ripping off No Way Home. I'm like, dude, this film's been in production for 10 fucking years.
Yeah. It's like they stated way back when, we're essentially doing Flashpoint. So we've got multiverse. We're going to be bringing, people you've seen before, about all that stuff. Everyone got really excited by that prospect, and then suddenly Marvel announced, we're doing Spider-Man No Way Home, and it just so happens that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have been spotted in New York with Tom Holland, and everyone starts going, hang on. So that was a direct response to this film. It's just DC being DC, they're not that great in the organizational department. And so now they look like they're riding the coattails, or trying to ride the coattails of No Way Home. It's just like, it's really unfortunate.
I think something that they could have done, and listen, if you're doing multiple universes, all bets are off. What I kept waiting for in this movie was the moment where Flash goes to Ben Affleck and he's like, "Oh, I'm too soon." Whatever that scene was that Batman versus
From
Superman?
BVS? Yeah.
Yeah. I kept waiting for that scene. You could do that and make people want to go back and see, like, just put something to that and tie a bow around that. And just walk away from it and say, look, it's a universe where that happened, and it would raise some interest in previous property, but it's hard. It's hard to, like, this movie was DOA from jump. It's just so strange that you have James Gunn coming out saying we're starting from scratch, and it's like, anyway, here's Wonderwall, and it's like, well, what?
You know what? I call me crazy, but I think that there was an opportunity they missed because I don't know if you guys watched the CW Flash, but it was great. Like I said, the first 3 seasons were great, and I know that fan base, it's present, so it can't be ignored. I think there was a missed opportunity in maybe bringing Grant Gustin in as a Flash. Maybe instead of having a young Ezra Miller, they could have had Grant as a Flash and then working together. So now you're tying in 2 audiences, 2 fan bases together. I think that would have been really cool to see on the screen, and Grant and them working together to reset the universe. I think that would have been a good nod to that show. I mean, it got a little sloppy at the last few years, but again, it's got its fan base.
The Highlander Endgame.
Yeah, there you go. Something cool. I think a lot of opportunities were there, and I know the fan base on Twitter and everybody else is like, "Hey, where's that at?" That would have been a good moment. But
I want to say this inexplicably. Apologies, Rudy.
Please do.
The moment where Bruce Wayne, he does the time analogy with the spaghetti.
Yeah.
It was a punch up at Marvel, and he's like, "No, that's not the way it works." And I was like, "Good for you. Good for you. Fuck the Avengers."
To this day, no one can. I mean, that time travel explanation, I still don't understand it.
Yeah, but the way he was just like, "No, that's bullshit."
Yeah. Yeah. And hold on real quick. There's a super chat. Thank you, Troy McClure. Let's see. Multiverses. I think it would have been a great way to introduce new versions of the characters. So far, it's relied on nostalgia baits. Missed opportunity. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Just to kind of give people a glimpse. I know they haven't casted anybody yet in the new universe, but just that would have been good. But that requires patience and planning, and there's nothing like that there in the Warner Brothers executive office. No, they don't know how to plan with the shit. No, not at all. But that would have been great, man. And where was Linda Carter in that whole sequence? Where was Brandon Routh at the end? Like all these other universes, like where's the nod to them? Linda Carter is pretty big.
Would you want, like a 12-minute sequence?
Something. I don't know.
Coming in next, Val Kilmer.
Brandon Routh, Dean Cain, bring like them all in.
It was like a wrestling movie when we had the Wonder Woman theme, the fucking I'm like, here she comes.
That was cool the first time, but then it's got annoying after that. And I love Wonder Woman's
music.
I can't. Where do we go from here, guys? How do you save the DCU? I mean, what does DCU go? What do y'all think?
We'll find out when James Gunn and Peter Safran give us new movies.
I think they're going to have to struggle for at least 3 movies.
Yeah.
But the fans have to accept what they're doing, and the studio has to trust them if it doesn't catch on right away. Don't get cold feet and don't get reactionary and start hacking 30 minutes out of the second film and then bringing somebody in to recut the third film or whatever. Like, they have to let James Gunn and Peter Safran do their thing for a couple of years. And then if it's obvious that it's just whatever their idea is not working, then we can work from there. But they can't expect to come with Superman Legacy, even if it's amazing, and just wash everything away. And now we're back on
build your audience, spend time building your audience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think they should.
Beautiful. Perfect.
I think they should, do your Pattinson Batman, do your Joaquin Phoenix Joker. Just do these isolated movies, and if you come to this point where you want to start forging this universe together, that's fine. But build quality first. Like, these are, isolated little stories. But if you want to and make sequels and then kind of stem them off into a different place, then do that. But make the good stuff first. I mean, Iron Man, nobody knew who Iron Man was.
Right.
I mean, Joe Sixpack. I know comic fans did, but and Robert Downey Jr. was. Listen, he wasn't Ezra Miller cancer, but he was pretty. He was pretty bad news as far as casting was concerned. So take notes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see, people wanted to see the next Marvel movie, not because that cameo at the end by Nick
Fury.
Not because that was there and it promised, more Marvel stuff.
Yeah.
They wanted to see it because the movie was good.
Mm-hmm.
The cameo is just a payoff, and it's like if you look at what Sony have done with their universe, they'll make a crap movie like Morbius, and then they'll stick a cameo from Vulture at the end of it, and it's almost like they're asking you, buy into our universe. And it's like, no, bitch, give me a reason to buy into your universe. Make a good flipping movie.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you got to build your audience. And I always think about I'm a big X-Files fan, and the first.
Me too. God damn it, man, we're the same.
Told you.
Two of them.
The first season of the X-Files, right? When they got to the end of the first season, 20th Century Fox was this close to cancelling it because it didn't have the viewing figures. It had a very cult niche audience, but in between the break for season 1 to season 2, that thing just erupted culturally. It became a pop culture thing. People were like, have you seen the X-Files? And they were recommending it and telling everyone. And by the time season 2 came along, the viewers just started going like that.
Same with Breaking Bad.
It had the chance to breathe. It had the chance for the real hardcore fans, the ones that they'd spent the time building that relationship with. It had a chance for them to just go out and tell the world and preach X-Files. You've got to be watching X-Files. You've got to. Season 2 comes along, and then by the end of season 2, it's the most popular TV show in the world. By the end of season 3, it's literally changing pop culture. It's affecting how TV shows in general are made. Mm-hmm. You look at most TV shows these days, they owe a debt to the X-Files. And that's a show that was this close to being cancelled at the end of season 1. You got to build your audience. Make something quality. Don't expect the big bucks straight away. As long as you break even, that's fine. But make sure that the people who have seen it are talking about it positively. Mm-hmm. And if that keeps happening, people are going to come back. More people are going to gravitate to it. I've got to find out what this is. Why are people so hyped up on this? But you can't expect that just by your second film or whatever. You just let that ball keep rolling, and before you know it. But
people like to forget that it. I would say it took until phase 3 of Marvel for it to reach that quite literal FOMO stage where everybody just, whether they cared about the movie, cared about the trailer, cared about the character that was a star of it, they went in droves to the theater out of fear of missing out and being confused later on. Mm-hmm. Like we were building up to Endgame and Infinity War. I mean, like Captain Marvel and some of these other movies that inherently weren't going to be box office huge successes by themselves, but they made over $1 billion because it was leading up to this thing. And even phase 1, like Iron Man was great. Most people don't really care too much for Iron Man 2.
I love 2.
Thor is one of those movies that it's always kind of in the middle. Mm-hmm. And then you have Captain America, the First Avenger, which most people like, but it wasn't like this huge thing. And so even just the Avengers was like the proving time.
Yeah.
And after they proved themselves, then suddenly phase 2 hits, and you still had some rocky stuff here and there. You had Guardians of the Galaxy and things,
which had no business doing as well as it did.
Yeah, but then you had even Avengers 2 disappointed a lot of people.
Yeah.
But they still had that uptick because they were proving more than they were failing. And I think if you compare, I don't have them in front of me, I'm sure CP does. If you compare the box office like totals of a lot of these movies in the first couple of phases of Marvel, that would probably be considered a disappointment by today's standards.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it didn't make $1 billion. What the fuck? And so they got to be able to have the balls to let Superman Legacy and whatever the second and third film be a $400 million, $500 million movie, best case scenario, and not freak the fuck out.
Yeah. It's like the equivalent or an equivalent that I could think of is like some kid today, some 18-year-old starting a YouTube channel, puts out 3 reviews and goes, why the freaking hell have I not got Cody Leach numbers? And you're like, because
I feel attacked right now.
Ryan, I'm not
I feel attacked. So 46-year-old guy.
but you see it all the time. You see these kids starting YouTube channels and complaining like they're owed something, and it's like, put the work in, build up the audience. You know, prove to us why it is we should be coming back and watching you. And it's the same on any scale of thing. It's like, no, I'm not just going to rush to your movies just because you got the DC label on. Well, I am, but the general the general audience isn't. The general audience is going to say, all right, prove it to me.
Yeah, what made Iron Man great? Everybody's saying, to Cody's point, if you watch Iron Man, there's no multiverse mentioning. There's nothing. It's just a Tony Stark story. And then with a post-credit scene that teases about something potentially that's up ahead. I think a lot of these studios, I think we all could agree, is that they're not focusing on just a story. They're like, how can we make this a universe? How do we tie these other characters in? And they're not focused on just one character, one story. They're thinking about the billions that they can potentially make that Marvel did. And that's why Sony is making shit films. I mean, no one, like you said, who's going to go see Kraven the Hunter?
I mean, even Marvel has been doing that the past couple of years, where they're just focused on the grand multiverse and building all this stuff out. And it was just like, dude, the individual movie still has to work. The individual Disney Plus show still has to work.
To Cody's point, Captain America, the first Avenger, made $370 million worldwide.
Yeah, that would be disaster by today's standards.
Iron Man
YouTube
made $585
would be disaster bomb all over the place.
Right.
Yeah.
In the MCU, my 2 worst MCU movies are Ant-Man, the last Ant-Man, which I had to watch over 2 nights because I was literally so unengaged with it.
I keep hovering and I'm like, nah, not tonight.
You're talking part 2.
Quantumania.
Oh, yeah.
Quantumania. And Thor Love and Thunder, which was just so those, like, they're literally like I think Wakanda Forever was sandwiched between them 2, but it's like you look at where phase 4 has gone. Are we in phase 4 now?
Yeah, we're in phase 5 now. Quantumania was the first of phase 5.
Well, it's just like essentially the last 2 films thereabouts are literally the worst, which shows you how rock bottom they've hit. Like I can't go back to the first 3 phases and say, yeah, one of them was the worst. It's literally like the current phase that they're in is just produced.
My bottom is Thor Love and Thunder and Eternals. Captain Marvel is extremely low for me. And it's all the more recent stuff.
Yeah.
And Thor Love and Thunder was like a hard, like the last time that I ranked him, I was like, well, that's worst. Let's work from there. Yeah. And it was no question.
That whole cinematic universe thing, they did something revolutionary. Like, that was never a thing before, where you could
Universal Monsters.
Well,
you're talking
Evan Costello.
Yeah. Well, for how about color? Do you have anything in color that you can compare it to?
Austin Powers.
I know. Let's move the goalposts. They never did anything like that before.
Well, no, I'm saying it's revolutionary. That it's so much so that everybody's emulating it to a certain degree. It's not. I mean, so much so that Universal said, "Hey, to your point, hey, we did this. Let's redo the Mummy. Never mind. We don't know what we're doing."
I will also say that DC did do it in TV first with the Batman the Animated Series, and then Superman, and then Justice League and Batman Beyond.
I've heard.
Well,
I've heard that the animated
movie
films are
space
far better.
in the 90s. They owned the movie space because the Marvel was making those shit direct-to-movie video, like Captain America, Dolph Lundgren, Punisher movies. So there was.
Well, I mean, Batman '89. I remember I was a kid, but there was lines around it. Like, this is back when like movies were a big deal, and that was a big deal. And shit, I mean, the Nolan Batman's fuck. What else is there to say?
That's a good example of rebuilding. The Batman Begins didn't make an assload of money, and then what happened? Everybody said, "Oh, that's fucking good," and then The Dark Knight cleaned house.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, with Batman Begins, the space between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, you had loads of time for everyone who actually saw Batman Begins to tell everyone else that no, this isn't Batman and Robin. Don't let that. Seriously, it's not Batman and Robin. Go and see it. It's totally different. So they had all that time for people to kind of build up that further. Then you had another Nolan movie in between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, which only heightened his stature as a director.
Prestige, wasn't it?
Yeah, The Prestige. So that heightened his stature as a director people wanted to go and see.
And he milked Warner for Inception to do Dark Knight. Can you imagine being Christopher Nolan saying, "Yeah, I'll do that sequel, but I want to do my weird dream,
my passion
movie."
project."
Yeah, and they both just crush it. Like, what?
But it's this thing of like developing a relationship with your filmmakers, where it's like that's your most, as a studio, your most valuable asset isn't all those producer pricks in the boardroom who think they know something about movies. It's your filmmakers, it's your auteurs, it's your people who've got a very clear vision about where to take the movie. So, do one for them and one for you. Say, okay, look, we want you to take this character. It's yours. Do as you will. But in between this film and the sequel that we hope you'll do for us, we'll greenlight your dream project. Build those relationships with the filmmakers. That in turn endears you to the audiences who love those filmmakers. And it also gives you much better quality films within the franchises you're trying to build up, because the filmmakers themselves are more invested and feel like they're being rewarded by the studio who's asking.
And when you think about it, when Warner Brothers has allowed a filmmaker to do their thing, we're talking Richard Donner, we're talking Tim Burton, we're talking Nolan, and perhaps I forget her name, who directed Wonder Woman 1.
Patty Jenkins.
When they allow them to go into that space, they make remarkable, wonderful films that are critically acclaimed. So it's when when they interfere and maybe just get a little bit too reactionary because the MCU is making millions, we need to go ahead and do this, and they interfere with that creative process. That's
kind
where
of what I was
it crumbles down.
Yeah, like the fact that the MCU was just a runaway train. They're like, well, we can do that.
GA, I've got to seriously disagree with that. Tenet was excellent.
I knew you were going to latch onto that like fly paper. As soon as I saw it, I was like, 10, 9.
Tenet was my favorite movie of that year, and I will argue that to the grave.
Anyway, DC.
There's a couple of super chats before we move forward. I know we got like 20 minutes left, but let me get to these real quick. Daniel Skinner, that's from The Simpsons. Since we're talking Flash and Batman, thoughts on the canceled George Miller Justice League movie, a film that had Adam Brody as Flash and Armie Hammer as Batman? I've heard of it. I don't know much about it. I know there wasn't going to be any building of each character. It was all an ensemble piece at first get-go. Who knows? I mean, I love George Miller. I mean, who knows what could have happened? I don't know.
Armie Hammer.
I was happy it never came off, to be honest.
Who was playing Wonder Woman? Somebody at the time that was real popular. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad it didn't happen. But there we go.
Yeah, what is it about Warner and attracting some really skeezy actors?
I just heard about that documentary. Like he was a cannibal.
I just watched some of it. I was like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, I got to finish that. I'm all in Black Mirror right now. I'm checking that out. I'm 2 episodes in. Jake, thank you so much for the super chat. Even if Superman Legacy is great, it will still make mediocre, slightly above mediocre numbers. Yeah, I mean,
Superman's never been a big mover as far as money's concerned.
Yeah, but Man of Steel, I think it grossed like $700 million, and people were calling it a flop.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but
Well,
you know.
again, that's
It's-
this internet fucking $1 billion or shit.
Well,
Yeah.
it's also
It's-
because Superman,
because
Batman, and Wonder Woman are the heavy hitters. So
The
they
whole
expect
trilogy.
them to-
And it's also because it was coming off the back of the Dark Knight trilogy. It was literally the first like proper big DC film after the Dark Knight trilogy, and you had Nolan involved in it as producer and whatnot. So so they just
Yeah, I also think, to your point, that the DCU really started off on the wrong foot because it upset two audiences, because it came out right after Avengers. So the MCU had dominated and just it owns a comic book a base. And if it didn't feel like a Marvel film, people were rejecting it. And I saw you review your rankings, Cody, with the Man of Steel being number one. And to this day, I agree with you. I don't know why people give it such a hard time. Yes, he's destroying things, but he's not Superman yet. He's fighting
it's
a
genuinely
Kryptonian.
one of those movies.
I don't
where
understand your
I
complaint.
Cannot understand a lot of the biggest criticisms of it.
Yeah.
Like, I can usually step into somebody else's shoes and be like, okay, that worked for me. It didn't work for you. But the constant criticisms that are hailed at that movie just don't compute in my brain.
And then the Hulk destroying everything in New York.
Yeah.
The Avengers, like, it's the same shit. I mean, it's a comic book movie.
I feel like most of the stuff with Man of Steel is fans projecting their idea of who Superman should be onto the narrative that's been formed. So rather than saying, well, no, this is the world that we're living in here, then this is our Superman that we're dealing with in this world. They're saying, no, but I don't want that to be my Superman. So, well that's
he's not Superman yet either.
Yeah. It's like you're projecting your Christopher Reeve idea of Superman onto a movie that's got nothing to do with the Christopher Reeve movies. Take it on its terms, not past movies terms.
I also think it pissed off the Black Knight fans, the Dark Knight fans. Dark Knight, that's a dildo.
Martin Lawrence fans,
right? Yeah, but no, the Dark Knight fans, because you had a trilogy that people love. I mean, you know, people love those films, and when they found out the DC was going to start, we're going to forget about Bale and move on from it. So you had two fan bases: that fan base they built, and then the MCU fan base that was primarily owned and wanted a fun film. So it never really had a running chance, a good start.
It might have even had to do with a little bit of the disappointment that a lot of people have with the Dark Knight Rises too, because people walked out of Dark Knight and they expected the same or better. And you know, I really like the Dark Knight Rises, but most
I like it better than the Dark Knight Returns. But the Dark Knight, actually, like it better.
Most people consider that the weakest of the trilogy. Whether they're right or wrong, we can argue all day long. But you know, they were on that wasn't as good, and then Man of Steel was right after that, so that could have even been some momentum from that.
Or too soon. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was a different flavor. Like Marvel was, you know, colorful and happy and save the day.
You can bring the kids, everybody. Hey, let's go watch Captain America.
DC was a bit, you know, all right, this is how
fuck you, we're killing everybody.
Yeah, this is how real shit would be. We got some 9/11 Superman, motherfucker.
Yeah. And that's what I want. Oh man, but let's see here. What are final thoughts? You know, we're wrapping it up now. Final thoughts, guys, on this whole Flash DCU. You know, I'm glad it's over. You know, I was kind of hoping this was a giant reset, and I saw the post-credit scene, and I thought it was stupid and a waste of time.
Yeah, it was.
Even this for being the reset. Okay, I'm washing my hands of this and moving on to James Gunn. I didn't have that closure, especially with two other films coming out, but I cannot help with the what ifs and could haves. I've been a Silent Hill fan, and we know how I've been a Metal Gear Solid fan. So every franchise that I love and want more of hasn't gotten the treatment it deserves. So I'm hoping that Gunn really does something special. I think he knows the audience. I saw an interview with him that he did with Lex Luthor. He has his podcast Inside
Rosenbaum, Inside of You.
He's a great podcast, and
he's a great interviewer.
Yeah. And James Gunn knows the pulse of the audiences now. He understands that, you know, there may be some fatigue. He sees the problems that the MCU has done in this last phase, and I think he's cognizant we're not going to replicate that. We're going to take our time and build characters.
I'll tell you, the piece of that interview that gave me the most faith in him was when he was talking about, do you think people are fatigued on comic book movies? And he said, no, people are fatigued with mediocre films because we've gotten so much success out of comic books that these people creating film. And he was careful not to name names, although I'm glad that he at least said enough there to get his point across, where he's like, we have so much success in comic book films that people have forgotten to make them good and focus on the characters and focus on the story and give people a reason to care. And now they're just spectacle and it's boring.
That's fair, but at the same time, there's too many. It is
for sure.
It's the modern day Western.
If they were all great, though, we wouldn't have that feeling as much. But especially with Marvel kind of dropping the ball the past couple of years in comparison to what they've been, with DC on this constant peak and valley, and especially with whatever the last CEO of Disney was, his model of just like shove everything on Disney Plus. I think now that they're going to pump the brakes on that, it'll get a little better, hopefully.
My problem is that it's not just movies as well; it's TV, and it's like, can you keep them separate, please? I don't like this whole movies and TV. Just like, no, let TV be its own thing, and movies be completely separate. I'm a movie guy, and I just want to go and see movies. I don't want to be forced into feeling like I've got to go and check out some 10-episode series just to feel like I'm still in the loop.
It's like blackmail. It's like you have to watch it.
Yeah.
That's how I felt watching all of the Disney Plus shows that I actually watched, and I wasn't really a fan of any of them. And there's half of them that I haven't even watched. So I was glad that after Bob Iger came back, they were like, yeah, we're still going to do the Disney Plus shows, but they're not going to be required viewing anymore. They're going to be their own thing.
Yeah. And have any of those shows? I don't even subscribe to Disney Plus because fuck Disney. But have any of those shows been good, other than Loki?
Not for me.
For me, my favorite one was actually Hawkeye.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I watched 3 episodes of Hawkeye. I lost interest. I didn't think that WandaVision was anywhere near as good as people made it out to be. Yeah. That was more just intrigue than quality to me.
Twin Peaks.
I was over the moon excited for Falcon and Winter Soldier, and that was okay. I was really excited for Moon Knight. That was okay. They all kind of had the same progression for me, where they hit the gate running really good with that first episode, and you're like, oh, this is interesting. And then it starts to get into stuff, and then it ends very quickly. And it's like, this either needed to be a movie or this needed to be fleshed out 5-6 more episodes for a full series. And that weird 6-episode compromise thing had the same effect every show that I watched.
Disney Plus has the inverted effect with Star Wars. The Star Wars series have been stronger, and their films have been,
some of their series. Apparently, I haven't watched a lot of them. Apparently, Boba Fett was horrible. I didn't think
Andor I heard was really good. You know, like Mandalorian?
Obi-Wan Kenobi was
yeah. That's all right.
I thought
I've heard season 3 of Mandalorian hasn't been very good or wasn't very good. I've checked out of Star Wars.
I really liked the first episode of Kenobi. I liked where we actually found Kenobi, the state he was in and stuff. But the more it went on, I was just like, yeah, I don't care.
That was something that should have been a solid 2-hour movie that focused on the best parts of that show and got rid of all the extra bullshit.
There's a fan edit that I heard that's on the internet. Some fan edited the show and made it a good 2-hour film, and it's a whole lot better.
That's what I've heard. I just haven't cared to watch it.
Yeah. Hence, I don't give a fuck about Disney. Real quick, Sean, I see that on YouTube that you're a member for 2 months. Thank you for that. I can't, for whatever reason, it's not highlighting in StreamYard, so I can't highlight it. So again, thank you for that. I just wanted to acknowledge it. But you said Man of Steel is better than any MCU movie, and maybe Richard Donner Superman 2, and the best Superman movie. Yeah, so yeah, I agree. I mean, it's different tastes. I mean, I like the treatment, the tone of Man of Steel. I think it's a masterpiece. I don't care what anybody says. I think it's the best of the MCU and one of the best comic book movies that's gonna outlast the other comic book films. Like maybe not this generation, but when the people revisit this era, they're going to see that Man of Steel is going to stand out. I think it's going to be there's some longevity there, and
it gets better with every watch for me.
And it's a shame that was the potential what we could have had, and we didn't because again the leadership was reactionary. So I definitely agree. But Richard Donner, I mean, like I said, that's my first hero. I'm old, so I remember seeing Superman 2 in the theaters, but I remember seeing the Superman VHS at home all the time, hence the tattoos. And it's the template that the MCU has used. Then before they made any of the films in the first few phases, they said they would watch that film to give everybody an idea this is what we want. So it's still great. And considering the innovation they just created to make these films and make special effects that didn't exist. It's a wonderful film. So thank you. And real quick, Troy McClure again, BO numbers. What does that
Box
mean?
office numbers.
Thank you. I don't speak jive. Are the direct correlation with budget? The numbers itself isn't significant. 100 million opening can be great or a disaster. That's true.
Well, that's true, but nobody's making a $40 million Superman movie. This is not going to happen. Like these big, I wish they would use more creativity. Like when you can make a movie like Deadpool for what, $70 million, or the Joker, it was, or the Joker, and come away with damn near $1 billion. Like that should make. If I was in charge, I would be like, okay, I'd take kind of the Blumhouse approach. Like, let's try to spend less. But at the same time, we're at a point where you're just not going to get away with gigantic tentpole blockbuster superhero films with modest to mid-level budgets. So that's true, but
there's too many variables, and the internet, it's 1 billion or bust for the internet. And there are so many variables, like
R2, it's 5 billion or plus.
Failure 2.5. But yeah, like Cody brought up, Deadpool making the money it made in February. You have to realize that there's certain months where movies aren't supposed to make, hundreds of millions of dollars. And when movies do that, like it, regardless of whether or not, it didn't even come close to the Avengers. We're talking about apples and potatoes here. Well, what the fuck are you talking about? Consider all the different variables.
But I think what made Deadpool such a success is because it was a perfect translation from the comic book page to the movie screen.
And Ryan Reynolds, they were probably perfect for that role.
Yeah, he was born to play it. So it was a perfect translation, and I guess they respected the actual treatment and the character. They didn't change it up. They didn't, change it to be anything Disney that has done over the past year. They're not Disney-fying it. It's a Deadpool story. They left it alone. They didn't expect much, and look what it did. So, and that makes me, and I'm very worried what they're going to do with the Disney now owned Deadpool with Logan coming back, Hugh Jackman. I don't know. Well, I'm not excited about it.
We'll see, but let's wrap up before Brian.
Yeah, I know, Brian. I'll see you there. But again, guys, I know this was like a last minute thing. Brian, this was an unexpected visit, and again, I appreciate your presence because I know it's like 4 a.m. where you're at. But again, you are my brother from another mother, and you're my Snyder brother, and I appreciate you being here, man, and sharing your thoughts.
The difference between you is that Brian likes all DC.
I got to reel you back in, man. Like, hold on, brother. I'm with you, but hold on. But real quick, anything you guys want to plug, Cody or Charles? Anything you want to plug before we leave?
I'm going to be reviewing the 4 Indiana Jones films over the next week and a half or whatever. I'm going to see what I can get done before I go on vacation, but you'll get those all next week at the latest. So that's all I have coming up.
Perfect. Mr. Charles?
First of all, Rick Tan, it's not about plot and script. Just I give you Fast X as an example. It's not about what a box office draw is. It's about what we as movie fans draw. But as far as I'm concerned, slowly but surely everything behind me will start disappearing over the next 4 weeks. So I'm probably going to be strictly doing like live content. The PS5 is packed.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and it's June. We're in trouble.
Who can I fucking fight with on Twitter?
Drama.
Oh shit, he's got a cryptic title. What's happening?
Sign me up. I'm in there.
Click.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you for watching. If you haven't done so already, subscribe, like the video, share it, leave some comments if you were late attending the live, and I'd love to hear from you. But again, thank you so much, guys. Take care.
You stupid bitch, you filthy slut! Did you fuck with me?